Genesis 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maid whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, Now behold, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I will obtain children through her. That terrible idea. No. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. After Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Abram's wife Sarai took Hagar the Egyptian, her maid, and gave her to her husband, Abram his wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her sight. Basically saying, maybe she got a little puffed up. And Sarai said to Abram, May the wrong done me be upon you. I gave you my maid into your arms, but when she saw she had conceived, I was despised in her sight. May the Lord judge between you and me. Well, she's very angry. But Abram said to Sarai, Behold, your maid is in your power. Do to her what is good in your sight. So Sarai treated her harshly, and she fled from her presence. Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. He said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, Return to your mistress and submit yourself to her authority. Moreover, verse 10, the angel of the Lord said to her, I will greatly multiply your descendants, so that they will become too many to count. So right here, he's the angel of the Lord, and yet saying, I will multiply your descendants. Not an ordinary angel, but Yeshua himself, Yahweh, part of the triune God. I will greatly multiply your descendants, so that they will be too many to count. I mean, when angels speak to Satan, for instance, he says, God rebuke you. How much less do angels give life, saying they will do this? No, God. So this is God here. And they will be too many to count. The angel of the Lord said to her further, Behold, you are with child, and you will bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has given heed to your affliction. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him. And he will live to the east of all his brothers. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. Or then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are a God who sees. Is that Jehovah Jireh? You are a God who sees. For she said, I have remained alive here after seeing him. Therefore the well was called Bir Ayaharoi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. So Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to him. You've got to trust the Lord. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Abram shouldn't have done that, but it happened, and there you see that God will make good of it. I mean, God had seen her affliction, and he's not uncaring, and it wasn't outside of God's plans anyhow. But we must have faith. So let's continue to chapter 17 and see what happens. Now when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you will be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham. For I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make you nations of you, and kings will come forth from you. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your descendants after you. So not just the nation of Israel, many nations will come from you. Verse 8, I will give to you and your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. That's what it says in the end, and God will be with them, and that's eternity. Verse 9, God said further to Abraham, now as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep, between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and you. And every male among you who is 8 days old shall be circumcised throughout your generations. The servant who is born in the house, or is bought with money from a foreigner who is not of your descendants, a servant who is born in your house and who is bought with money, shall surely be circumcised. Thus shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. But an uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Then God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a song by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, oh, not a good reaction. Said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? Well, he was 99 years old, so he wasn't even being accurate. And will Sarah, who is 99 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. But God said, no, but Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year. When he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all the servants who were born in his house, and all who were brought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's household, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the very same day, as God had said to him. Now Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the very same day Abraham was circumcised, and Ishmael his son. All the men of his household who were born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner were circumcised with him. That's chapter 17.